Yo, what's going on, guys? And we're hearing that our man, yes, by the name of Jerami Grant and Anfernee Simons, one of the two, allegedly, according to Aaron Fentress, on an appearance on Sacktown Sports, he said that the expectation before training camp, one of those guys will be moved. And it makes sense. They're both on rather large contracts for a rebuilding team, and this team is basically up against the tax. And if you're rebuilding, it's definitely not something you want to be. So the assumption right here, they're not up against the tax, but like they don't have as much cap space as a team that usually has if they're rebuilding. So they probably want to, get some cap flexibility. And Jerami Grant, we all know, is tied to the Los Angeles Lakers, while Anfernee Simons, I think there hasn't a lot of teams. So he's an undersized scoring guard with point guard like skills. Like, I think he's more suited to be like a sixth man than a starter. But as a starter, he can play both the point guard or be an undersized two, as he has he can facilitate, but he can also be a scoring punch. So he's a guy that I think a team maybe along the lines of like the Brooklyn Nets would be interested, because when you look around the league, it's just right now, it's hard to picture another team trading for him, because I think most of the teams in the league that do have they have their point guard, or because of the new tax aprons, they can't really trade for him. So when you look around the league, obviously I feel like most teams have their point guards. As let's just go through this, because I think Jerami Grant, we know where he's going to go. The only other team I think besides the Lakers could be the Milwaukee Bucks, if they're trying to like basically flip Chris Middleton and a pick for Jerami Grant. Now, I think that's going to be a tough deal, but if we just look at, what it could possibly be, I think just thinking about maybe look, Boston, New York, Toronto are all teams that don't need Anfernee Simons. I think Brooklyn could have interest. I don't think Philly is going to have interest because they already have Tyrese. Now, would Chicago want to, it's more, would Portland want to take on Zach LaVine? And I think no. So Chicago's out. Cleveland, they have Darius Garland, so they're not going to do anything. Detroit has Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey. They're not going to do anything. Indiana has Tyrese. Milwaukee, they have Damian Lillard. Atlanta, Trae Young. Charlotte, LaMelo Ball. Miami, Anfernee Simons doesn't fit their style. Plus, they already traded for Terry Rozier last year. Orlando, would Orlando want to give up like Jonathan Isaac? And I don't even know who you would put out in there. And that would have to be a midseason deal, because I think because of Jonathan Isaac's extension, he's able to be traded for a certain amount of time. So I would just pull out, I guess at that point you would say Orlando's not going to go there, and they're kind of set. Would the Wizards want to do it? I mean, the Wizards can eat the contract, but they could, would the Wizards even want to do it? I think that becomes the other thing that you think about. Like, the Wizards, their salaries right now, they're trying to get in the Cooper Flag sweepstakes, and it's not like obviously Anfernee Simons. And Anfernee Simons wants to go to a winning team, he said. And they already have Jordan Poole. So I think you take out Washington too. Minnesota doesn't have the cap room. Oklahoma City doesn't fit. Denver, he's not going. The Clippers, he's not going. The Lakers, he's not going. The Suns, he's not going. The Kings, he's not going. Nor the Mavs, the Rockets, the Grizzlies, or the Pelicans. So that just leaves, nor the Warriors. And that leaves, outside of the Brooklyn Nets, maybe the Utah Jazz, and that would either be for like John Collins or a combination of like Jordan Clarkson and other salaries, which even then, I don't think that really entices you if you're the Portland Trailblazers. Then there's the Spurs, but they just brought in Chris Paul, and would they want to get all these other guys? So like the Spurs are maybe, would it be like Zach Collins and whatever other salaries they have at hand? I just find that one difficult to picture. So outside of all those, if it's not the Spurs, if it's not the Jazz, which we just sat there, Jerami Grant's path is a little bit easier to picture. While Jerami's easier to picture, Lakers, Bucks, contending teams trying to like upgrade their wing position, most teams already have their guards set, and most teams don't want to pay almost, over $25 million for a guy that, is he going to be productive for them? Is he going to have the value that they hope he can give them? And I think that right there is the hardest part when trying to figure out Anfernee Simons' true value is, okay, then we trade him, like, what is he going for? Because he fits in the same mold as Jordan Poole, Emmanuel Quickly, Tyler Hero. I feel like I'm missing a few guys right there, but Emmanuel Quickly, Jordan Poole, Tyler Hero, Colin Sexton, a bunch of other guys that just fit that mold. All right, the first trade is the most obvious. I think we're all going to sit here and be like, yep, that's probably the easiest one to do, and that would be like Ben Simmons. And I don't know what the picks would be, but it basically would be like Ben Simmons and maybe I put 2 second-round picks. Maybe it's just the first round. My whole thing is if you're the Nets, you're not trying to give up any picks if you're trading for Anfernee Simons. You're just not. You're both rebuilding teams. You're trying to give up as little picks. Robert Williams' knees are shot. So the assumption is here, you go either second round picks or just 1 first round pick, your least wanted pick, and Ben Simmons, who's an expiring contract. You get yourself maybe the point guard of the future, and you just take on the contract that is Rob Williams. Now, the next deal is the one that I think is like the one people would rather do, Anfernee Simons for Dorian Finney-Smith and Dennis Schroeder. Dorian Finney-Smith would then probably be moved in a re-team trade or just later down the road, while Dennis Schroeder is an expiring, gives him a backup point guard to, help mentor Mr. Scoot Henderson. And even down the road, he could be somebody trade at the deadline to a contending team. I think this was the one that's more realistic if no picks are involved, just because everybody kind of gets what they want here. But yeah, I just think this is, again, the hard thing when you're trading with 2 rebuilding teams is they don't want to give up draft assets because that's what they're looking for. Now, let's move over to Jerami Grant. And I think if it's not the Lakers, who we talked about at length before, I think a deal maybe like Jerami Grant for Chris Middleton and, a pick. Look, maybe they really only have 1 pick they can offer. So I say like a lottery protected pick in 2031 and a second rounder for Jerami Grant. And then they probably buy out Chris Middleton or try to rebuild his value. I just think Chris Middleton's knees are shot. So that's why I would do this if I was the Bucks. And it's not too bad, and you can maybe buy out Chris Middleton or just try to rebuild his value. And of course, everyone's talked about this, the Los Angeles Lakers. We all know that the Lakers, the first deal I think is the best one. No picks involved. Russell, Vincent, Jalen Hood-Schifino, Jerami Grant, Duke Reith. Obviously, everyone's going to be like, well, that just benefits the Lakers. Kind of, yeah. But if you're they want 2 first round picks for Jerami Grant, allegedly, and I just don't think that's going to happen. Maybe you do this deal and you include 1 first round pick. Jalen Hood-Schifino, which is a former first round pick, so that's how you guys maybe negate the 2 first round pick requirement. Gabe Vincent, D'Angelo Russell, and then you send them a backup big and Duke Reith, and then Jerami Grant there. And I think it's not bad, even though Gabe Vincent, we don't know what he is at this point because of the injury. You get D'Angelo Russell expiring, you get a young guy. Now, is that the best? Now, this is the other deal, which I guess maybe the easiest, which is Russell, Vincent, Reddish, and a second round pick. For Jerami Grant, you get 2 expiring deals, and you get Gabe Vincent, who, you could flip down the road, try to rebuild his value. It's not really that bad of a deal. Right there, I know a lot of people are going to be like, well, there's terrible value. It's not good value at all. Look, guys, I think at this point, if you're the Blazers, maybe throw in a first round pick if you're the Lakers, or you put Jalen Hood-Schifino back in there. It's just no Duke Reith, it's Jerami Grant. But I just think this is going to be a hard deal to do. And who has the leverage? I don't know.